Hello, in this video, we're gonna look at how can we using the Excel to calculating the moving average and also the centered moving average, and so that we are able to identify our long-term trends. Okay, so the data we're using is under your computer lab exercise, and the data set is called a private housing starts. So we already see this data in the lecture video, so we already identified in this data set. We are able to see the long-term trend, able to see the seasonality, also cyclical pattern, and also irregular movement. And we just try to use this example throughout chapter and to learn how can we decompose the data and how can we based on decompose the component to do the forecasting. Like I said, in this first video, we actually just focus on how can we convert my data to moving average, and then further to calculating the centered moving average so that we are able to identify the long-term trend. Okay, so for this data, as we can see, the data we have is quarterly, February, May, August. So we have quarterly. So every year we have 4 quarters. Okay, that's great. So if we have quarterly data, based on the lecture, we know that we are considering the quarterly seasonality, not monthly. So we're starting from quarterly. Okay, so let's create a new tab. Let's just call it, let's call this new tab as CMA, because it stands for Centered Moving Average. Because the goal for this exercise, try to learn how can we convert this data set to our centered moving average. Okay. So based on the lecture, we know that for centered moving average, and we are calculating the quarterly, so we actually we are not able to starting our first 2 observations because we need the 4 quarters. So if we try to estimate the first observation, we won't have enough data to do the estimation, the same for the second. But we are able to starting our 3rd observations. So the reason is that we are using when we look at a quarterly forecasting, we're using the prior 2 quarter, current quarter, and the next quarter together, construct a 1-4 season, and then to calculating their average. So let's just name my next column C. Okay, I was starting from here because the first 2 observations will not exist. I'll call it MA, moving average, and then it's quarterly, right? So MA. So in order to get MA, like I said, what we're gonna do is we type in equal, and using the term average, and then select the first 2 quarter, and then the current quarter, and then the future 1 more quarters. So this will give us the moving average for quarterly moving average for August, or the 3rd quarter of the 1959. Okay, so we can use Excel's drag down function to fill in the rest, because as we move to the next cell, what we need is to use computer to calculate the average between May 1959, August 1959, November 1959, February 1989. So that will give us the moving average, quarter moving average for the November 1959. Okay, so I just need to select my cell, move the corner to the right down corner, hold it, and drag it down. Okay, so once you finish, and then you finish, okay, so sorry, we're gonna remember. So if you check our last quarter, it does not have 4 quarters, right? Because we are missing the future one. So we will miss our last observation because we don't have 4. So, but the second one from the bottom, we will have 4 seasons. That's good. Okay, so this is my estimate for MA. And then based on what we look at on the PowerPoint, so basically in order to converting the moving average to center the moving average, we just need to use the current period's moving average plus next period moving average, and to find the average between these 2 values, that will give us the center moving average for the period we try to predicting, so that we actually can center the period we try to predicting. Okay, so let's look at how can we use Excel to calculate the center moving average for the data set we have. Okay, so let's look at the data. Now we have a moving average. Let's move on to centered moving average. So as we said, in order to calculate centered moving average, we just need to get an average of my current moving average and the next moving average. And then we find the average of this current and the next moving average. So that's going to give us the centered moving average. So we are moving our mouse to the right down corner and hold it and then drag it down. Okay. So we are not be able to get in our last one, so I can show you why. So look, so for the last one here, center moving average, we are averaging out between the last observation moving average and the blank cell. So it doesn't write. So we need to delete our last one here. And so we're gonna miss one more under the centered moving average. But the average value we are seeing here, okay. Let me just keep everything 2 decimal places. Okay, 2 decimal places. Okay, so everything we see in the column D is our long-term trends. So that is the time series without seasonality. So we're gonna look at that. So this data is representing our long-term trend data. Okay, and so if we try to plotting my original data and my long-term trend, and you will see the relationship. So let me show you on the slides. So as you can see, if we try to plotting my my private house starts and the private house start center the moving average, so you'll be able to see the very fluctuate data. That's my actual data, and then the dark black line. So that is how when I'm putting my center the moving average in the same chart. So you can see it does capture my long-term trend, right? So how it go up and down. But for this trend, it doesn't representing my my quarterly changes, right? Because it's a deseasonalize data. Okay, so that is how can we use Excel to calculate the long-term trend that is being measured by centered moving average. So you should be able to use Excel to calculate that, okay?